Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I think time to start. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to this joint event, to the joint webinar on the occasion of the 10th anniversary of the great earthquake and the nuclear disaster of Fukushima. This event is brought to you as a joint project, as a joint event hosted by the Energy Watch Group, the Global 100% Renewable Energy Platform, the Global 100% Renewable Energy Strategy Group, the International Geothermal Association, the World Bioenergy Association, and the World Wind Energy Association. And my name is Stefan Xenger. I'm the Secretary General of the World Wind Energy Association, and I will guide you through our program today. Before we start, let me just give you some instructions. I would remind everyone that this is a public event, so it's not only those people here online which are watching it, but there's also a live stream on the WWA YouTube channel, and the video is the webinar is also recorded, so you may also have the opportunity to watch the webinar after that in the coming days or weeks. So that means that if you raise your voice, if you say something, be aware that it is a public event. With this, let me welcome everyone, in particular our speakers, our partners from the different renewable energy associations, and I would like to welcome our first speaker, the Honourable Peter Ray from Australia, who will welcome you and speak not only on behalf of the World Wind Energy Association, but also as honorary chair of the REN Alliance. Peter. Peter, can we? Not sure whether we can hear you.
Yes.
Peter, there seems to be a problem with your connection.
I've reduced the screen that is being held, as Stefan has just mentioned, by a group of organisations, all conscious of the fact that it's the 10th anniversary of Fukushima, which was the event which put to, I think, most people's minds the fact that nuclear energy, whilst having an element of cleanliness, has a high element of danger. And it's an occasion which was so dramatic that when we were there some years later and hearing the stories of the people who'd been involved, it was a very sad occasion. But let me move on to, I'm speaking from Tasmania, which is Australia's island state, about the same size as the country of Ireland. It's one, however, which is 100% renewable and is aiming to be 200% renewable by 2040. So it's something where I believe that we have a story to tell, and that story is one of developing renewable energy in most of its forms. And I just want to, in opening this, refer to the fact that the rapid development has brought a number of things which need to be considered. We are achieving what a few years ago, I think most of us would have thought was just not possible, but it is now happening. The rate of development is extremely strong, and the number of countries in which development of renewable energy is taking place is also extremely wide. So what follows that? Well, grid management is one of the things that we'll have to follow. Electric cars and the cities and what that will do to storage and to the cleanliness of cities is something which we can discuss. We need, however, to concentrate a little further on the backup for intermittent wind and solar. Need some further backup because they are, as everybody says, the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine. So we need pump storage, hydro and biomass and geothermal and marine and potentially green hydrogen and batteries and all those other ways that are being developed to provide the backup. Which will be the best and which will be the ones that survive is a matter for the future. Education and training worldwide is also needed. So what we have is a situation where we're opening this conference in recollection of Fukushima, but in the knowledge, and I think we can say thank you to the majority of the people of the United States that Joe Biden won the election and has taken the United States back to being a leading role in the rollover to renewables. And I think we should all be thankful for that and wish them well in developing. I wish everybody well who's participating in this webinar, and thank you very much for the opportunity to introduce the webinar, which I'm now going to enjoy hearing others. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. And yeah, you're joining us from Australia. It's very good. We really have people from around the world here with us. Now we go to the place which kind of is the reason why we're meeting.
It seems like we lost Stefan for a second. I will check that with him. Second. Okay, seems to be back, but muted. You have to unmute.
I'm back.
Yes.
So there was a small interruption here with the internet. I'm sorry for that. Yeah, still technology is not always so reliable as we can see from this. Yeah, it's my great pleasure now to welcome our next speaker, Dr. Tetsunari Ida, who is the director of the Institute for Sustainable Energy Policies in Japan. Tetsu, you are one of the leading renewable energy experts in Japan. You were already a proponent of renewable energy and one of the big fighters for renewable energy before the disaster happened 10 years ago. But you have, of course, witnessed the development of renewable energy, and you're also witnessing the development of nuclear power in Japan. And we look forward to hearing from you firsthand how the situation in Japan has developed in the past 10 years and what the impact of in both ways is of the accident 10 years ago. Tetsu.
Yes, thank you for inviting me to this 10 years anniversary. Already 10 years has passed, but still a long way to go. Actually, so last 10 years, it was the big change from a global perspective to the solar become 10-1 cost, and the wind is declining 10-3 cost, and both wind and solar is now cheapest energy in a global average. It was never imagined 10 years before. It's a kind of the historical coincidence. The Fukushima nuclear disaster is a kind of a wake-up call and also a kind of a starting point of the global renewable energy, the disruptive change toward 100% renewable energy. So, Germany and the Australia and Italy, Switzerland, Taiwan, South Korea, all other countries are moving rush to renewable energies, the society, but only Japan ourselves is still long being kind of a crossroad. Is story still worry about our energy should be which directions. So it is still we must fighting to more mobilize the peoples or mobilize policies and politics toward renewable 100%. But good news is the people's the opinions sharply shift before March 11th, 10 years before, and after is a big shift from nuclear to renewables. It still stay the vast majority of the Japanese peoples against or negative toward renewable nuclear, and also both vast majority of the Japanese people support to promoting renewable, and also the bunch of the bottom-up community power come up with after the disaster. So we have something like 200 or 300 the community power come up with. They are very much the variety and very much the active and energetic to promoting their community power still. So, and also the more and more the cities and also companies, the commit to renewable 100%. So this is also the more and more the variety of the institute, peoples, and groups, and also universities to more commit to the mobilize the energy from the fossil and nuclear toward renewables. So this is the kind of but still the central government difficult to mobilize, but all other society on Japan is slow but steadily toward the energy, the shift toward renewable 100%. So we are sure to the soon or later that we can at some point we can drastically change our energy policy and politics toward more rush to renewable 100%. So it is still not yet the current government, but the time is the nearby. So this 10 years anniversary is a kind of new starting point. The Japan should change in some time, the near futures. So a lot of the event is come around this 10 years anniversary. So tomorrow we also have the big event of the global nuclear free and renewable 100%, and also fossil free, the energy, the conference tomorrow, and the 5 former prime ministers also joins us to this 100% renewable conference. So I'm relatively optimistic we can achieve we can mobilize whole the Japanese society. So thanks again for inviting me to the important occasion to we can report the current situation in Japan. Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you so much, Tetsu. And let me just also mention that if some people in the audience, if you have any questions, please use the chat window type
Yep.
your question, and then we can address the person. Yeah, it is very, of course, good to hear directly firsthand from you, Tetsu. So these days, if I may just ask you, there's many events on the day of the anniversary. So people are thinking back, probably also of the victims of the earthquake, but also of the nuclear accident.
Yes. Actually, we had 1 month before we had a relatively big earthquake hit to Fukushima. Very much surprisingly, this 1 month before the earthquake was some additional earthquake of the 10 years before the earthquake. So still our like a how to say, so our like land is still moving, and also the earthquake even damaged the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, the recovery work. So we again remind us to our country is very vulnerable of this earthquake as a nature's disaster. So we should how to get out from the nuclear, also the fossil fuel to renewables. So more and more people, even young people, is now very much activated to working on that.
So what's the, when we talk about renewable energy, what is the most successful renewable technology at this point of time in Japan? I know that there's not so much progress in wind, but some, and solar power Japan is very strong in.
Yes, as statistics, we have 60 gigawatt solar power last decade, and around 9% of the electricity supplying. It's a sharp increase, and the wind is still slow growth. It's only 4 gigawatt, but especially offshore wind, the coming decade is more than 10 gigawatt wind is planned to build. So this is even the electricity monopoly or big industry now rush to offshore and wind power. So it is good sign to the Japanese conservative industry, even conservative industry work for renewable. So they are now slowly understanding that nowadays the new energy should be more reality than the other nuclear or fossil fuel.
Now, as we also have two representatives here from Bioenergy and from Geothermal, what is the situation of, I know Japan has a lot of geothermal potential. What's the situation of geothermal and bioenergy in Japan?
Geothermal. There are, finally we got to have a succeed to the one large scale geothermal now starting to build in north part of Japan in Akita. It's something like several hundred megawatts, but most of the geothermal is relatively small, 1 megawatt or less, even less than 1 megawatt. It's that's a kind of a surplus heat from the hot super, because the Japanese geothermal development is always conflict with the hot spot industry. So it's a very difficult to the local consensus to make. It's still take a time, and also the biomass. We have a lot of biomass resource, and also the lot of the plant to build, and already built the biomass power, but most of the biomass power not necessarily using the domestic resource. They are mostly importing from the mostly from the East Asian countries. Some are like a tropical forest or something like that. So this is the conflict with the environment. So the biomass is now a little bit difficult to development of the another type of the nature conservation issues. So both the biomass and the geothermal is a little bit difficult to promote.
Thank you so much. Yep. I'm looking forward then to hearing later from the colleagues from these both sectors how they look at it. Yep. But it's good to see also your background, Nuke 0, RE100, which is certainly the way to go. And with solar and wind, obviously taking a large share, and also other technologies playing an important role for Japan's bright future. So our best greetings to Japan, to you, Tetsu. Thank you for your contribution. And then please have a look whether there are some questions coming up for you at the later point of time. Thank you, Tetsu. Then we go to, that was, of course, one of the pioneers of renewable energy in Japan. And I have the pleasure now to invite one of the pioneers of renewable energy in Germany. In the meantime, also worldwide, Hans-Josef Fell, who used to be a member of the German parliament and as such one of the authors of the maybe most important single legislation, the German Renewable Energy Act, which was then also, I think, applied in a similar way in many countries around the world. Hans-Josef, you are now the president of the Energy Watch Group and also one of the initiators of the Global 100 RE Strategy Group, also an ambassador of the Global 100% Renewable Energy Platform. And I have the pleasure to hand over to you to share your views, your vision of a renewable future.
Thank you, Stefan. It's a great pleasure, and thank you for your kind introduction, your invitation, and your engagement in all this 100% renewable issues. It is very, very important. And I love to see Tetsu. Again, we often met us in the world. Today it is not possible because of the pandemic, but we hope we can overcome this crisis and see us again in reality. I would love to do it. I was often in Japan and discussed with politicians, with media and others about the renewable energy issues. My last visit was about 2 years ago to visit in Fukushima region, and I could see both. One side, the still existing terrible situation with radioactivity, not in all regions. We have some clean regions now around Fukushima. The people work very hard and very good. But we have in other regions, like in the woods or anywhere, still too high radioactivity, what limits the possibilities for the people to live. On the other sides, I could see engaged people, plenty people who worked on the solution that Japan will come independent from nuclear and fossil power. I could see farmers with agri-photovoltaics very successful. I could see geothermal electricity production and others. I could see wind power. And I could see there are wonderful people in Fukushima region and in Japan by the whole who work on 100% renewables. And my congratulations to all of them to bring that forward. How important it is, I will show in my presentation. This is very important. First of all, I will speak shortly over the necessity why we have to come to 100% renewables, the situation in Germany and what does it work, about the hinders behind the legislation and what have we to in the legislation to come fast by 2030 to 100% renewables world. So we see the necessity is very, very crucial. The newest scientific reports from the climate scientists show us here from NASA, but you can see plenty others. The situation of increasing world temperature is so hard that we will exceed 1.5 degrees global warming by 2030, latest 2035. This is a situation at the moment very crucial, and we all have to do that we stop this increasing, but it is not possible with the most decisions from the political decision makers to come to a climate neutrality by 2050. This is much too late. We must come to a zero emission world until 2030. Otherwise, we will exceed even 2 degrees global warming and come into hothouse Earth with the decreasing of the humankind society. It is very, very serious, and therefore we have to go much, much faster. Most people believe it is impossible to come to a zero emission world until 2030. In the center of the emissions, most emissions are emitted by the energy sector, fossil, coal, natural gas, and oil. And nuclear is no help for this because it is too slow, it is too expensive, it is too dangerous, it is too polluting, and it is too dangerous even for nuclear weapons. So nuclear is no chance for it. But how can we come to it? We organized a joint declaration with a global 100% renewable strategy group. These are the main leaders, researchers in the world, from USA, in California, in Europe, Germany, Denmark, Finland, and in Australia. And the decision of this declaration is clear. When we have the political will in the world, over all nations, the global energy sector, the whole energy sector, not only electricity and power sector, can be transformed by 2030 to 100% renewables. We can achieve this massive exponential growth rates. We have plenty examples in the world that this fast track is possible, and in other industry sectors, mostly in digitalization, in information technologies and others. And therefore, we have the hope to go this way when the opposition against renewables is removed. Solar and wind and flexibility will be the key pillars of energy, but we must include as well hydropower, bioenergy, geothermal, all are important to bring flexibility. And our message is also 100% renewable system will benefit the world economy. Climate protection is not a burden for the economy for the world. It is a benefit for the world, economically, social aspects, and plenty others, peace express, and so on. We can show in Germany that with political will, the growth rates can be very fast. We see the share of renewable electricity beginning from 2000, 6% share. We introduced the feed-in tariff law with Renewable Energy Act, and we could see since this time we have an exponential growth rate. Every 7 years, we have the doubling of the share of renewables. All the targets of the government was overfulfilled. 12% in 2000, we got 19%, 30% in 2020, we have now 50%. It is possible. And when we look to this increasing rates, we can see the next doubling period would bring 100% renewables about 2027. It is possible to go much faster than all the targets of the political decision makers is. And this is in a time during we had in the last decades a dramatic decline of the yearly investment. Here the example of wind power. In 2 years, wind power investment onshore declined from nearly 5 gigawatt to under 1 gigawatt. And offshore wind energy is also declining. We could much higher invest. The same is in solar investment, in bioenergy, in hydropower, in geothermal. So this means we could go faster even our speed is. And the question is, why do we have this decline in the yearly investment? And before we come to the answer to this question, we must repeat who were the society, the people who invested mostly into renewables. In Germany, the big utilities, RWE, Vattenfall, EnBW, did invest only 6% of renewable energies. They did nearly not take part on this transition. But the most investment came from the private people, from farmers, from newcomers, from private project planners, from funds and banks, and small energy providers, not the big ones. And so we see the most important is the community power to stimulate and to give the chances for the people to go on. And exactly this was in the German newest decisions declined. The reasons are dramatical political amendments in the Renewable Energy Act. Firstly, the switch to auctioning, wind, rooftop, free field PV declined. We got a high and increasing bureaucracy. Solar investors on their own rooftops have to pay extra charging, and permission problems, lawsuits against wind projects are increasing as well. All is not stopped, but introduced by politicians who want to support nuclear and fossil system and not renewable energy system. And therefore, but we see, we have in the last years, especially in solar, an increasing rate. And this is because of PV and wind are now the cheapest energy option by the whole in the world. And therefore, the unsupported investment is increasing. But it is not enough to have only unsupported investment. We must support it by the politicians with a wonderful feed-in tariff law and others. And therefore, we have to change the situation to go in. And we must first recognize, why does auctioning limit the investment in community power? We created a big study in 20 countries, everywhere the same picture. When the switch from a good, successful feed-in tariff law goes to auctioning, then we have less investment, we have limited investment by the auctioning volume, we have a decline of investment because the actors, mostly the community power, cannot take part. It is too hard for a cooperative or for private people to take part on the auctionings, and so they are excluded in this way. And this is the most important situation. We have to come back to feed-in tariff law, and auctioning and tenders are a good idea in utility scale investment, offshore wind parks and others. That's okay to go with auctioning system. But up to 50 megawatt, we have to come back everywhere to feed-in tariff and a wider industry mix. And how fast it can work, we can see in Vietnam. In the solar roof of Vietnam, you can see the situation in Germany. In Germany, solar roof increased only from 2.6 gigawatt to 3.0 gigawatt in 1 year. In Vietnam, no, they had a new feed-in tariff, a very wonderful, and we could see an increasing within 1 year from 378 megawatt investment to 9,500 megawatt investment. And this shows very disruptive increasing rates are possible. The industry, the people can do it. It depends only on the political will to make the right political framework. And therefore is a question, what is the right political framework? Feed-in tariffs are crucial for small and medium scale, up to 50 megawatt. We need a new feed-in tariff for combined 100% renewables. I will explain in the next slide. auctionings only for utility scale projects. We have to abolish all fossil and nuclear subsidizing. Everywhere in the world, the subsidizing of fossil and nuclear is increasing instead of decreasing. And this makes it hard for the renewable sector to take part in this market when the fossil and nuclear is so highly subsidized. We need taxing, but not only for carbon dioxide, because when you tax only carbon dioxide, then natural gas will have a benefit, but natural gas has a lot of emissions of methane in the forechain, in drilling and in pipelines. Methane is high polluting the climate, and natural gas is no answer for climate protection. It is as polluting the climate as coal industry. Therefore, make a polluting tax carbon, methane, radioactivity, and air pollution. That's important. Research and education, campaigning, we must reduce all the licensing obstacles to help them. And we must identify which political laws are not successful. It is clear certificate systems and emission trading. Emission trading did help nearly nothing to promote climate protection. Therefore, we have to go to these political issues, what I mentioned. But how can we stimulate that what we need now? We need now the combination of renewable energies together with storages and digitalization, that the renewable energies can serve the grids with the necessity what the grid operator needs. We have to invest and to feed up the grid when the consumers need electricity, and not only when a lot sun is shining and wind is blowing. We have to balance the fluctuations with a mix of all renewables and a mix of storage systems. And we have to combine them with big data, with smart home systems, smart city systems, with all this what is possible. The technologies are there, they are ripe, but there is nearly no investment. We see nearly only investment in single investment in solar, in single solar wind power parks, in single biogas stations, and not into the combination. Therefore, our proposal is to make a new law with a feed-in tariff that stimulates combined power plant remuneration. Give a tariff that an investor who brings a combination of renewables with storages, all the electricity, how the grid operators needs it. This would stimulate a fast growth, and we have not the necessity to strengthen the grid in this way, what we have to do without such a remuneration and without such a situation. So you can download all this from the Energy Watch Group homepage. We have the political studies, and we have the proposals written in English and sometimes also in other languages. You are free. Contact us. We would be happy to advise all the governments in the world how to do the best political framework. Thank you for your interest.
Thank you so much, Hans-Josef. That was a very inspiring presentation based on your experience, and I think it is very good to, of course, to hear about that you're very confident that what can be achieved. We can achieve, that's what you said, the 100% renewable energy world much faster than many people anticipate, and it's great to see that you have now teamed up with these people, these leading experts from around the world, who all tell us the same message. It can be done much, much faster than some decision makers want us to believe. And I also find it very important that you emphasize how important it is to involve the people, encourage the people, citizens, communities, that they have to play an important role. I know that that's how you started personally, setting up one of the first solar PV systems in the south of Germany, where you are in the first feed-in tariff. Policies do matter. I think that's the other conclusion that we can draw. And I mean, your recommendations are very specific in some ways, but what we really need are the right policies that are not kind of excluding some investors, but the policies which are encouraging, in particular, those many small investors. Thank you so much, Hans-Josef. Just let's see whether there are some questions still coming up for you. I would then go to our next speaker, and it's my pleasure to have Marit Brommer on board with us, and from the International Geothermal Association, one of our long-term partners. The IGA is representing the geothermal industry worldwide. Located in Bonn, actually, our head offices are next door, if you want. And Marit has been guiding the IGA now for several years, and it's my pleasure now to have Marit speaking. And Sean, can you help us with this?
Hello, everyone. My name is Marit Brommer, and I am the Executive Director of the IGA, the International Geothermal Association. We are currently operating in 42 countries across the globe, and we serve members coming from industry and coming from public-private partnerships worldwide that want to contribute to a clean energy future by driving development and mobilizing finance into geothermal energy, both, for instance, to baseload power, but also for clean heating and cooling solutions. Our partners, such as the World Bank and the International Energy Agency and IRENA, the International Renewable Energy Agency, under the leadership of the Global Geothermal Alliance, we are creating a strong, very effective and enabling network across the globe to help serve on the Sustainable Development Goal number 7, clean energy to all. Over the past years, we've mobilized quite a few dollars into green energy production coming from geothermal, but overall, in the entire contribution to clean energy, we are relatively small. I think that is going to change in the coming decade, and we are very proud to kick off the geothermal decade, as we call it, with our partners and friends from across the world. We see, for instance, a strong need to stabilize grids, and we work together with loads of wind power organizations across the world in order to understand how complementary geothermal and deep geothermal projects can help by providing that baseload power. We also look for geoenergy solutions when it comes down to storage, seasonal storage in smart city, for instance, contributing together with solar, thermal, and district energy networks, where we serve a centralized solution for clean heat in homes and built environments. But also cooling gets more and more attention, of course, these days, and specifically affordable solutions for centralized cooling, again, through district energy networks, is something where geothermal really advocates for. At the same time, we also see that geoenergy receives quite a strong interest from oil and gas companies across the world, again, on the scalability and the business cases that geothermal energy may provide for power, but also for direct use applications. In addition, I am sitting here as well in a beautiful greenhouse. The food industry is calling for action when it comes down to moving away from fossil fuels to provide solutions, clean energy solutions for sustainable food. And hence we work together a lot with the solar energy associations worldwide, how to complement solar thermal with geothermal. And I think the beauty of all the renewable technologies working together in terms of serving the SDG 7 in its fullest potential is, of course, what excites me very much on behalf of the IGA, but also truly, let's say, the opportunity to join hands and serve that clean energy transition is something that I feel very proud of to be able to contribute to. I also want to highlight here the fact that we're working together quite a bit with the Hydropower Association, so the IHA, specifically on governance and sustainability assessments of our resources and our resource management. it's vital that we drive on the factors of sustainability around environment, around corporate governance, and about sustainable energy solutions that doesn't harm the environment, but does justice to people, the planet, and communities that are dependent, and livestock, savings. And for that, I want to thank all my renewable friends from all the different organizations worldwide to hold hands and really advocate together for a clean energy that we can achieve if we call out to everybody worldwide to do that simultaneously in concerted ways and with a focus, as we say, on the 2050 timeline, where we can achieve to reach 100% renewables to all. I thank you very much for hosting and for organizing this webinar. As always, WWEA is doing a fantastic job of creating synergy for all. And it's an honor, again, to be part of it today. And I'm happy to take any questions if you may have that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marit. And as some of you may have noticed, that was a recorded version, but Marit wanted to join us because she has some problem with the internet connection right now. So we got this as a kind of backup, and we're still open to receive questions, and then Marit may also answer the questions. So thank you. So you heard what the geothermal energy sector can deliver. Now let's move to bioenergy, and it's my pleasure to have our colleagues here from the World Bioenergy Association, in particular Christian Rakosch, who is the president of the World Bioenergy Association. Christian, you've been in the bioenergy sector, in particular in the wood pellet sector, for many years, and now you started being the president of the World Bioenergy Association in these a bit challenging times less than a year ago. Now we look forward to hearing from you what bioenergy can contribute to a renewable energy world. Christian.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be here. Let me just shortly share my screen. Yes, I think, is it visible?
Yes.
Thank you, Stefan. Yes, I would like to give you just a very brief overview of regarding the role of the bioenergy sector and also of the development of the bioenergy sector. The bioenergy has been the first source of energy that humans have been using. So it is a very old sector. And being such an old sector, it's easy to be also a big sector. Large parts of humanity are still living mainly on biomass as energy source, and that's the reason why biomass is very large in quantitative terms. It's 12% of the global final energy consumption. If you compare that to nuclear, which is only 2%, you can see it's 6 times as much. Maybe a surprise to many of you. So it is big. And its potential is even bigger. For the time being, most of the renewable energy that is supplied by bioenergy is based on wood. It's based on forestry. It's based on using firewood in traditional economies. It's based on using residues of the wood processing industries in Europe, for example, or on residues from forestry that cannot be used for a higher purpose. Where the big potential lies is in the byproducts and residues from agriculture. You can see blue is the current use, orange is the potential use. It could also play an important role in dedicated crops, or even just in the use of organic waste. Much potential is possible. We could process organic waste with anaerobic digestion, for example, produce biogas. So there is still a lot of development potential. And in fact, we believe that the bioenergy sector could triple its share in the global energy supply, which would make it about 30% of global energy supply, probably then by that time the largest contributor to global energy. There are a lot of myths about bioenergy, and I just want to mention one because it was such an upheaval 10 years ago when the food versus fuel debate kind of was launched. If you recall, 2007, 2008, oil prices were exploding, and so were food prices. And it turns out, if you look at the way that oil prices have been developing and food prices have been developing, it's very interesting to see how closely they have been correlating in the past. And one of the reasons is, of course, that our agricultural system is based on a very substantial input from the fossil energy. And if fossil energy suddenly gets expensive, so does food. Incidentally, at the same time, biofuels production was taking off quite strongly. And a lot of people thought, oh, food prices are going up, biofuel use is going up. That's the reason why this is the case. And in fact, if you can look at the further development, biofuel production continued to increase and was totally unrelated to food price index. So this is just one example of misunderstandings that kind of create prejudice that don't really reflect the facts. Now, of course, and this is relating to a very important discussion, bioenergy has an impact on the environment because it is using plant material. And sustainability is an absolutely critical must for any form of bioenergy. We are fully committed to this. And we are also, quite frankly, know that there are current forms of bioenergy used that are not sustainable. If you take, for example, fuel use in Africa, the forests in Africa are declining faster than in South America. And that is mainly due to fuel use and land use change towards agriculture. Palm oil is a very well-known example of an unsustainable use of plant material. Well, most of it is going to the food industry, not to the energy industry, but still it's something that has created huge damage in biodiversity terms. So how can we achieve sustainability? One key point is technology improvement. Traditional ways of using bioenergy are very inefficient, are polluting. And by relatively modest modifications of technologies, just mentioning clean cook stoves, sustainability can make a huge leap and massive improvement. You could replace the use of charcoal in Africa, for example, by using pellets made from agricultural residues, which would result in a huge decrease of deforestation. It just needs to be done. But the technology for doing so is there, and I believe it's going to come. Of course, sustainability is not only about technology, it's also about the sourcing. And I mean, in the forest sector, certification has become a safe way of ensuring sustainable production. Certification, and of course, also legal requirements, which are very stringent, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. There is no example of unsustainable forest use for the time being. Most of the unsustainable forest use is happening in the Southern Hemisphere for the time being. So certification is also a must, not only for woody biomass, but also for other forms of biomass eventually. The critical advantage of biomass is that is the closed carbon loop. The plants take out carbon from the atmosphere, CO2 from the atmosphere, converted to plant material. Same CO2 is being released as they are being used for energy. But this is within a very short time scale and thus reduces the emissions from fossil fuels, which stay in the atmosphere permanently. So that's the key reason why we want to use bioenergy, one of the key reasons. And the other is the huge potential. as I showed you, there are so many opportunities that have not been used in the past that are still here to be used. I think it's going to be able to play an important role, as my predecessors have said, with of course, in combination with the other forms of renewable energy. And I see bioenergy especially in a field the other forms of energy cannot so easily address, and that is heat. Decentralized use of heat in households, for cooking, for heating, also in industrial processes. These are the strong points where bioenergy can really make a difference and can supplement what is coming from solar energy, from wind energy, of course, also what is coming from geothermal. So that was my contribution, and I'm happy to take any questions from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christian. I think that was a very comprehensive also way how you presented the role that bioenergy can play and plays already. And it's important indeed to address also those sustainability issues, which are sometimes a little bit dominating, I feel, the role that bioenergy plays. And it's the actual role is a bit sometimes in the public perception diminished, because bioenergy has been traditionally one of the first sources of energy that mankind has been using. And of course, we do understand that there is a role, an important role that bioenergy has to play also in the future energy systems. So I thank you very much for your contribution as well. If we have any questions, I'll come back to you. And then it's now my turn to speak about the role that wind power plays and can play and played and will play. Let me now show you just a few slides here on that side. So I hope that you can see that, because I don't see anything. Okay. Now, okay. Oops. What is my computer now doing? Okay, Sean, can you just tell me what you see?
We see your slides.
Okay, that is good. Okay, what I wanted to... Yeah, here it makes a bit funny things. Okay, can you see the first slide, 10 years after Fukushima?
No, the third one.
Okay, that is a bit strange. Which slide can you see now?
I think we still see the third slide.
Okay, then I need to change it. Sorry for that. The last time it worked exactly that way, then I need to just do it this way. Because then it seems that the computer doesn't want what I want to do. So I wanted to show you just also a little bit how wind power is actually a historic energy source, because we started, of course, as human beings, started using wind power many centuries back, using it for propulsion of winds. That started centuries ago and maybe thousands of years ago. Using it for mechanical purposes started like maybe 1,000 years or even more ago. It came to Europe from Arab countries where it was already common technology. Some countries like the Netherlands, and I'm glad that Marit from the who is Dutch is with us here, they used it to pump water from the land. So I think the wealth of the Netherlands, the rise of this country, has a lot to do with wind energy, with wind pumps. End of the 19th century, there were 200,000 windmills all over Europe, using mainly for grinding, for, of course, as for sawing wood, for many different purposes. And then the way we use wind power mainly today for electricity generation, that started in parallel in Europe, in Scotland, France, and in the United States at around 1887, 1888, with then some further developments just a couple of years later in Denmark, with Paul Lacour. We started then the more modern way of wind power generation in the 1930s, and then the Soviet Union, that's not so well known, in the 1950s had 40,000 wind turbines which generated electricity. So that is, Russia has actually a proud history of wind power. And then the decommissioning started of the traditional windmills, and then only with the oil crisis in the 1970s, the Renaissance started in the US around 1980 in parallel in Europe. But then the technology grew a lot from, at that time, 30 kilowatt machines, 50 kilowatt, 80, 100 kilowatt machines, until this century we achieved multi-megawatt turbines. And the largest turbines that we see today, they have a size of more than 10 megawatt and diameters of far beyond 100 meter, 150, 160 meters, some of them. We see that today wind power plays a substantial role in power supply worldwide. So the global share is now around 6, maybe even close to 7%. The global installed wind capacity has now crossed 700,000 megawatt. And I just show you now the latest figures. They are from, some of them are preliminary figures. We have now an installed capacity of around 735,000 megawatt by the end of the year 2020. China did an amazing job last year in spite of the pandemic situation, installed close to or around 50,000 megawatt in 1 year. United States also saw a record of 17 gigawatt in total. So these are preliminary figures, but certainly the best ever installations, new record installations in spite of the corona pandemic situation. And that is certainly not the end. Year 2021 will also see strong growth in many parts of the world. When we talk about wind turbines, we should not forget about the small wind turbines, and those that we usually define as up to 100 kilowatt, many of them used to supply power for households. The average size should be like 3 to 5 kilowatt. So we have more than 1 million of these units also installed across the globe. Many of them actually in China, but also in many other parts of the world. So let me summarize what is the role and what is the future that we see for wind power. We have some scenarios also for wind power, what the role that wind power can play. We expect that wind power in the long term will provide something like 30, 40, maybe even more % of the power demand. We know that the power share in energy supply will increase in the future because of the electrification of mobility, for example, cars, but also in the heating and cooling sector, power will play a more important role. So wind power will be one of those important sources in the future. It is already today. It's very important. That's something that we have to, of course, emphasize. We are aiming at a 100% renewable energy future, and I think that is just the new paradigm. So what we will see in the future is 100% renewable energy systems, which are based, and I refer to Hans-Josef Fell at this moment. Of course, they are much more structured in a decentralized way. So citizens, communities, they play a very, very important role, because many of us in the future will become not only consumers of energy, but also producers of energy with solar home systems, but also having small wind turbines, or we are shareholders of a wind farm. But that, of course, can also be the case for other renewable technologies. So the combination of those decentralized structures of many of us, maybe all of us, being producers and consumers, and there's this new word of prosumer of energy, in together with the symphony of the renewables. The symphony means that all the renewables having to play their role. That is certainly how we can see a bright future for all of us, because the energy, wind power, solar, bioenergy, geothermal energy, hydropower is practically available everywhere in abundance. It's just a matter of how we create the symphony out of them, how we compose the energy mix of the future, which will be 100% renewable energy. And I think there is a bright future. We are certainly not relying anymore on sometimes devastating energy sources, risky energy sources such as nuclear power or fossil energy sources with all their problems, in particular climate change. With this, I hope I could present you the role that wind power is already playing and will play in the future. And thank you from my side for your attention. And with this, we're also coming to the end of our webinar on the occasion of 10 years of Fukushima and why we do not need to refer to those 20th century technologies like nuclear and fossil energy. So thank you from my side, and just also would invite, if there are any questions, please feel free to type in the here in the chat window, and that seems not the case. With this, I think it's then time to say thank you also to all the partners, to all our speakers in this webinar. As I've mentioned before, it's recorded, so we had also additional viewers on YouTube, so it's broadcasted on YouTube. It's recorded on YouTube, and you will be able to watch the recordings also in the next couple of days on the YouTube channel. You share the link as well with all of you. Thank you from my side. Thank you to all the partner organizations, to the speakers. Have a nice evening. Have a good afternoon. Have a good day. And I look forward to working with all of you on making the renewable energy world, the renewable a reality. And I just see there's one question here. Okay, before we stop, I see that there is one question before we conclude here from Fritz Ock from the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, there are concerns about the massive import of biomass from Canada, polluting the air with fine dust and other components by transforming biomass to electricity. Is there a difference between biomass and biofuels? So that is a question to probably Christian.
Yes, sure. I'm very happy to answer that. Regarding the massive import, let me just put this into relation. About 2% of the bioenergy we're using in Europe is coming from imports. It's an almost negligible amount compared to the rest, which is local use of local resources, which is predominant in Europe and also in most other countries. So yes, indeed, there are some imports. Now let me talk about the imports. In Canada, they used to incinerate sawdust until 15 years ago, right next to the sawmill in so-called beehive burners, just putting them away. Now they're drying them, pelletizing them, and bringing them here to power plants. I don't see anything wrong with that. In fact, it is using something that was discarded in the past, and I think that's the right way forward. Regarding the pollutant, there is the power plants that are using these pellets have a full scale of pollution abatement technologies in place. So even the pollution is not an argument. Pollution is lower because bioenergy has no sulfur. So, but as a matter of fact, it is only a very, very small part of bioenergy use in Europe. It is a very controversial part. I know there are a lot of criticisms about it because people do not understand the full story. They don't understand that shipping pellets across the ocean doesn't take more energy than shipping it with a truck for about 200 miles. So these are, just a few remarks to this question. But thank you for giving me the question.
Yes, thank you very much. That I think we do not have other questions here. There is now reference to another event, but I think there are many events now in the near future taking place. I'm very pleased having you all here on board, and as I said, looking forward to working with all of you and with the whole renewable energy community for a bright, for a renewable energy future without climate change and without nuclear disasters. Thank you so much. Have a good day, have a good afternoon, have a nice evening, and see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan, for
Bye.
organizing Thank you for organising and conducting, and thank you to all of the other speakers. It's been an excellent run through, and it makes me feel confident about the future when you hear the presentations which we've had on this occasion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.